Detroit Pistons select Luke Kennard from Duke University.
Bang! Samaje Christian, 3.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest episode of the Triple Double Podcast. My name is Corey Albertson of Triple Double Prospects. As always, Jason Morrow of 270 Hoops is here as our producer, and our guest today is my longtime friend, Corey Evans. What's the word, brother?
Not too much. Great to be on here. I'm pretty excited about this.
I can hear it in your voice, man. We've been, talking about this for like 3 weeks now, and you're a busy guy, and I'm glad we could work out a time here. We had to do Sunday night, but you got your church in this morning, you got your workout in, all the Corey Evans staples, and here we are recording. So Corey Evans, for those who don't know, is a national basketball analyst with Rivals Hoops, one of the leading scouting websites for fans of high major schools all around the country to do national rankings, evaluations, all that good stuff. Corey also runs his own scouting service, which I know all the big colleges are a part of. So just give us the rundown for guys who probably follow you on Twitter but maybe haven't gotten a chance to hear you speak some of your views before, how you got into this and whatnot.
Yeah, you backed it up pretty, did a good background there. I've been running a college scouting service for about eight years now. Corey and I actually met when I was like an administrative assistant aide, whatever you want to call me, at Duquesne, 2011, 2012 season, I think it was. We had TJ McConnell on that team and a decent year, but of course, college athletics, as it goes, got relieved of our duties, the entire staff, and from there, I picked up my own scouting service and trying to work my way up the totem pole, as you could say, and worked at NY2LA Sports and then hoop scene down in Georgia, and now I'm going into my second full year at Rivals as the national analyst and enjoying the ride.
Working with the world famous E-Boss, a former colleague of mine.
The best.
So, if I remember correctly, tell me if this is somewhat of the story. I remember we met when I brought Willie Moore up there to officially visit Duquesne, but I didn't see you for a while. You were working with Duquesne, and then I was on the road at an Adidas AAU event in Chicago right after Coach Everhart had got let go of Duquesne, and you were kind of looking for your next gig. And if I recall correctly, you were traveling a little bit with OBC, and you were just kind of in the gym taking notes on kids that could play from various teams, just basically kind of volunteering your information to, you're a young guy. I was a young guy, the limited college coaching contacts you had at that time, and trying to get a college coaching gig, a GA gig, an ops gig, and you liked the scouting thing and just kind of stayed with it, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I always wanted to be a college coach, but as you know, is you kind of put your head down and you work hard at one specific thing, and one thing leads to the next, and the thing kind of grows its own legs in a way. That is my scouting service, and you pick up 15 to 20 college subscribers and keeps adding on. And as we know, in this sport, in this industry, it's hard to make a living doing that stuff, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that. But yeah, I worked with OBC for about 3 or 4 years, and actually had TJ McConnell. That was my first guy, as you could say, when he was a rising senior. TJ and I would kind of roam around, scout the nation, and I stuck on the OBC a little bit and helped coach those guys, the older guys, and help get some of the better guys from Western Pennsylvania into the program. And, like I said, now here we are.
Speaking of TJ McConnell, when we left Duquesne, that would have been fall of 2011. We're getting up there in age, you and me. But fall of 2011, I had Willie Morris, like my little brother. We were in the car on the way back to Cincinnati, And he told me, he said, that little white guard is a pro. And I said, who? He said TJ, whatever his name is. And I was like, man, he's a really good player. He was like, I don't know about all that, but he must have known. He should be the one in the scouting industry, because took a kid from a mid-major plus school and is now going to be a career NBA guard. That's a crazy transition. But with doing the scouting service thing, you get to control your own life a little more than the college coaching thing. You don't have to worry about constantly relocating, just the political aspect of getting a job. And in an ideal world in the scouting end, you're going to have less enemies and more friends. But one of the things that people don't understand is one of the scouting things we haven't talked about on the show with somebody like a Chaz or a TJ Kelly when they've been on here is you mentioned starting with 15 or 20 schools and adding on, and the coaching carousel at the end of each year. Everybody loves to ask each other who's getting this job, who's getting that job. It really affects your day-to-day living, because so-and-so coach that's coaching at a school gets fired, you lost a client. But if your friend that was an assistant gets a head coaching job at a small D1, you just picked up a client. So, how'd you do on the coaching carousel this year?
It's a funny dynamic, man. It's like, you don't want anyone getting fired, but it's kind of like you keep kind of tallies in your head, like, oh, there goes 15 college subscriptions. You know what I mean? But luckily last year was a hard year, man. I lost some schools this year. A lot more assistant coaching buddies getting gigs, and it's kind of more money in my pocket in a way. But I'm also excited for those guys getting a chance to have their shot at a head job. But yeah, it's a funny dynamic, man. It's hard to describe to those outside the industry, but you're pretty active there.
But I think it's just a natural dynamic, which is when I first got into this, I gravitated towards the college coaches that were younger, the guys who were in state, and it's a lot of those MAC schools, Horizon schools, the guys who were just getting their first assistant gig in the Big Ten. And now, like 8 years in, guys are starting to move up and everything, and I'm starting to see that with my subscription numbers go up. And it's such a people business. People think that the scouting, you look at it as they're just kind of the analytical nerd taking the notes on the players and everything, but it's a relationship game, not only in terms of getting yourself in there with college coaches to make friends and increase your own subscriptions, but also with, as you hit the road on the national circuit with Rivals now, you're getting to add to your database of AAU coaches, players, parents, scouting guys from literally all over the country. And that's only going to help your service when you can link your clients up with contact information or scoop from all over the 50 states.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it really is about who you know. I think I'm pretty confident in my abilities as an evaluator and all that. But at the end of the day, how much more do I know than, a Joe Schmo sitting next to me? I might know a little more, but is it 40 or 50 schools or 80 schools more worthy of? I don't think so. But like you said, it's about who you know and developing the proper relationships. Someone has to. There's 352 Division I programs in America. In 5 years, someone sitting in an assistant coaching spot right now is going to be in a head coaching spot. And in 10 years, someone sitting in a GA spot is going to be sitting in a head coaching position. So who's the next guy? Now, it's all about developing relationships with the guys, whether they're JUCO guys, D2 guys, D3 guys, coaches from the mid, highs, lows, whatever it is. It's about who you know, man.
It is, and that's what I talked with B. Snow about this with D2, JUCO, stuff like that. So, when you're looking at somebody like you or him, where you're doing Rivals, he was doing Scout 24/7, and it's national. You guys are going to be linked to high majors and mid major Division I so much because you see so many high end kids. But for the majority of the country, the guys in the scouting world, for you before you were doing the Rivals thing, a lot of your clients are going to be low major, mid major, Division II, maybe Division III or a Juke, because you're shrinking your geographical area and those schools are recruiting kids where they can't go on YouTube and see 100 highlight films or go to ESPN or Rivals or Scout and read a bunch of articles on the kids. So it's a very different niche that you've carved for yourself. And I mean, the thing I look at when I look at guys who are doing national scouting that is maybe the trick of the trade is you see more kids in terms of quantity and in terms of quality, seeing better kids, but you get limited viewings of those kids, much like a college coach, where you take somebody like me, I see less in terms of overall quality and quantity, but when I see a kid, I get to see him so much and really have a great feel for that kid's game. So how have you balanced that as you've gotten older?
Getting out more. It's a predicament, like, and the issue is as well is that I kind of enjoy watching. Maybe I'm a basketball nerd, but I kind of enjoy finding guys, right? Like, I mean, I guess I can find some high major guys as underclassmen, but it's cool to find, like, I helped Wofford find Fletcher McGee 4 or 5 years ago. Do I get a chance to find the Fletcher McGee types? That's difficult. So maybe it's not good for my own health, but that's why I'm probably on the road so much, because I'm trying to see as many guys as possible, whether it's low major guys, in major guys, high major guys. A lot of people can't do what I do, so for those that can't, I would say have a specific target audience, right? Like Corey, what you do is great because, you say to yourself, I'm going to dominate my niche. And you have a target, you have a niche, and, it's the state of Ohio, and, maybe it's rare Cincinnati, and Indiana, the bordering states or whatever it might be, but you have a niche and you have a target. And a lot of guys get into the business and they have no idea what their target is. Or they have an ego in a way and they just want to jump right to the high major side, and they're fresh out of college or fresh in the industry, and they're just all about getting to know the highest level big time guys and getting pictures and having the persona with the elite level kids. But they won't last. You need to have that specific niche. Like I said,
we talked about it with Chaz Wolf. We talked about it with TJ Kelly. TJ Kelly says, he doesn't vote for McDonald's All-Americans. Chaz says, it's easy to pick out high majors. It's easy to pick out pros. It's hard to pick out mids. It's hard to pick out low majors. It's hard to pick out D2s, especially when they're playing at such an elite level, like maybe the Nike EYBL or the Under Armour Association, where those Division II or low major kids aren't going to dominate the game. So, I mean, that's really what you've learned to do. And I think the reason you've risen so fast in this scouting game so quickly is you've definitely put that grind on. And I mean, everyone knows, that you're on the road probably more than anyone. I mean, you got a life, from my perspective, when I think about what, your life is like, more like an NBA scout where they're on the road so much, in and out of hotels, going to see a bunch of different guys. And, in the scouting world at the college level, it's a lot of waiting for the big weekends, whether it's an AAU event, a camp, or a high school, shootout with a bunch of teams. But you're just constantly on the road. And, I mean, that's got to be what attracted a company like Rivals to you, and then the resources Rivals has to, help cut some of the cost of that's got to be attractive to you as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm lucky. But like you said, you kind of got to be made for this kind of stuff. Are you okay with? I mean, I just spent my first weekend at home since February. And are you made for it? It sounds like a cool title, national basketball analyst, and I love what I do, but you also have to be willing to do some of the things that others don't. You have to sacrifice, and the sacrifice comes in the amount of time on the road, the amount of hours in the gym. I mean, it's 12, 13 hours in the gym. It's back to the hotel room. It's 2 hours of work and do it all again. And then July, it's it's all no bargains, right? So, I'm lucky and fortunate. I'm excited about what Rivals can a lot. But like you said, you have to kind of be willing to sacrifice.
You do, and then you've got to have thick skin too to work for Rivals. And I mean, I certainly learned this when I worked. I mean, I learned this when I first started my Cincinnati Prep Hoops Report website. But you're gonna have to have thick skin as you get bigger and bigger. You're gonna have more and more people reading your work and more people criticizing your work, and you're responsible for national rankings. So not only do you have to hear it from parents and kids and their coaches, but you also have to hear it from the fans of the schools that those kids are committed to. And I always say when I worked with Rivals with Kentucky, the Big Blue Nation gets such a bad rap. They're the easiest people in the world to deal with, but there's some fan bases that certainly are not.
Yeah, man. Like you don't realize, like 3-4 years ago, I didn't realize what all entailed. Like like the backlash, the politics. And I really take myself too seriously, and I think you shouldn't. I mean, all we're doing at the end of the day is scouting, evaluating, reporting. But you also have to respect the platform that's available. And sometimes I don't realize the platform that is Rivals. But it's crazy. One misstep and the amount of backlash you can get, like you said, from parents, travel coaches, head coach or high school coaches, parents, the college side, every part of the industry that has a piece of the pie. If you misstep just a little bit, you're going to hear about it.
No doubt about it. So let's talk a little bit on the scouting end of it. I was thinking, in writing some of the script questions for this podcast about what I wanted to talk about within scouting, and a couple things that came to mind with you as when I go to games with you at Speece Run and Slam. I don't get to see you very much, buddy. So usually we end up sitting on the same court for most of the weekend and watching games. And I know you prioritize Speece, somebody like you, as in the 2 April periods, you're watching the national circuit. You're seeing all type of different guys. Probably staying away from a lot of the Midwest guys, because then the weekend after April, you're going to go to Speece and you're going to see all the top Midwest teams. So when that happens, you see a kid you've never seen before. You get excited about him. You're known for, you're going to have a couple guys. You get really excited about those guys. And then I noticed that you always get up out of your chair after the game. You go introduce yourself to the kid and you get his number, and you make sure that you kind of help those kids get offers, and you really help those kids, guide them through the recruiting process. And that's stuff that a lot of national scouts don't do, and something I really respect. And your passion certainly shows within that. And just kind of talk about how you kind of use your resources to help kids, and how that makes it more fun.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's going back to being what I want to do for a living was a college coach, and I wanted to be a college coach because I wanted to have the platform to help kids out, right? Like God kids and make kids' lives better. And I'm also competitive, and it's hard to have that competitive side on the scouting business, but where I can still use that desire to help people out is the evaluating and scouting side. And it's, if I see a kid that isn't getting his dues and isn't getting options, I think options it's never a bad thing to have a lot of options, right? And if I can have the chance to, if I firmly believe in the kid, and I hope that I've gained enough respect and trust in this business from the college side, that if I believe this kid can play at a certain level or he's deserving of enough scholarships, then I'm going to bust my tail to help those scholarships come in for that kid in particular. And whether it's a mid-major school, low-major school, D2 school, even if I'm not being subscribed to by these D2s, we all are friends, you know what I mean? Hey, look at this kid, or the prep ranks. Like, this kid could use one more year of high school basketball if he reclassifies for strings, for academics, wherever it might be. I'm going to do whatever I can to help that kid out.
Okay, well, that's good. And so your passion shows through that. And I mean, that's definitely got to help you when you talk to the college coach or you talk to the kids, that excitement. Like I said, it's a people business, so they certainly hear that in your voice. And, I also noticed with you that, when you do the evaluations at an event, you're used to seeing events like a NBA camp, top 100 camp, where every kid can play. And it seems like you really dial in on, hey, I'm going to really, really look at these 10, 20 kids, and I'm going to get very detailed evaluations. And that's the tough thing for me from a national scouting perspective is balancing quality versus quantity of evaluations in your reports.
Yeah, I try to be thorough. I try to be the most thorough guy out there. We all have to find a way to separate ourselves in our own little way. I guess the fact that I'm on the road so much that allows me to do as such, going to NBA camp, it's unfortunate because there's 120, 130 kids there. I think I've seen about 105, 110 of those guys already, and I've seen them multiple times. So going into that camp, I'm trying to be specific, like, has that kid gotten better? How does he shoot it? How's he go up against, the more talented guys? It's nice NBA camp, you have 10 guys that are likely high major prospects compared to travel basketball where at best he's playing against 3 or 4 others that are high majors. So how does he do against the competition level that's up to par? And that's what I'm fortunate enough being on the road, seeing these guys a lot of times. It's okay, now I can specialize in what I'm evaluating with a certain prospect.
And you're big then on taking a prospect, taking what that kid's niche is. And, in a minute, I'm going to ask you kind of about to differentiate some of these niches. But when you look at these, niches, what one kid is really good at, a lot of people, not a lot of people, I think almost everybody, 90+% of people like to talk about a kid as being high major, mid-major, maybe mid-major plus, where he's in between all the way down to Division III. You're more of a guy, when I talk to you about players, you're less likely to tell me a kid is mid-major. You're more likely to say, well, he's a good guy for the MAC or the Horizon. You really like to kind of break it down in that in terms of what are some programs they'd be a good fit in, some conferences they'd be a good fit in.
Yeah, like, how can we, as evaluators of talent, how can we evaluate a kid and not, like, if we have a certain school that subscribes to our service, I better know how that program goes about recruiting kids or what kind of prospect they want. It'd be like an assistant coach not knowing the system that he's his head coach likes and going out there and just not knowing what you're going to do, not knowing what you're seeing or what you're looking for. I need to know what I'm looking for. And I need to be watching college basketball during the season to where, okay, Duke is way more different than North Carolina. And North Carolina is way more different than Virginia. And Virginia is way more different than VCU. And VCU is way more different than Radford. And it can go on and on. So I think it's just way more helpful for the college coaches that look at our reports that we talk to, we communicate with, and kind of helping them so they're not wasting their time. Because as we know, Corey, time is the most important asset for you and I and for the college coaches.
You hit one on the head that's great. I think every guy that's been on this podcast, every conversation I've had with anybody that hasn't been on this podcast yet in scouting, you talk to them about, well, if you're a young scout, if you're new to scouting, or if you're even new to college coaching, what do you need to learn as you get better in this? And the number one answer from everybody is go to or watch on TV, depending on your geographics, as many college games and practices at different levels as possible. And it's a really hard thing to do. It sounds like it's a super easy thing to do, and I've gotten better about it in the last couple of years. I had a probably 2-year stretch where I was really bad at it because, so I choose to have my own day job outside of basketball. Then I go watch a high school game after work at 7:30, get home about 9:30, make something to eat. And I'm like, well, I want to watch this game I recorded. But after doing basketball and work all day, sometimes I'd rather just hang out and watch Netflix for the night and everything. So, but you got to put that work in to see different teams and everything, just to understand, we've talked to guys about how much the game has changed in 5 years of college basketball. Well, whereas some of these bigs that are big bodies, thick kids that are more throwback centers, 5 years ago they would go mid-major or high major, and now they're barely going low major because the game is reflecting the NBA game and starting to stretch out, and they want, college coaches want skilled guys, and you have to really stay in the moment with the fluidity of college basketball.
Yeah, it's like you said. If you're not, it'd be like me labeling some 6'7" swatting big man that can jump over a phone book a high major guy straight away, just because he's Mr. Skilled. Like today's game, man. Like it's still reliant on shot makers, and I've actually put a little more value into a guy that might have been a mid-major guy in the past, but if he shoots the ball at a high rate, 38-40%, he might be a high major guy. He might be one-sided or one-dimensional or have one asset, but if he shoots the ball at a high rate, the value in that is so astronomical right now that we're seeing in the college game that it's raising his basketball ceiling one whole level, which is, if you're not watching basketball, you don't know that. You don't see that.
Absolutely. I mean, shooting's the big one. Being able to create a shot is one of them. And I mean, whereas 5 years ago they were looking for size, they're looking for athleticism. I mean, some of these elite athletes, I always talk about them, a lot of times coming out of like Southeast United States. There's some kids who are just freak show athletes that were going mid to high major that now aren't finding a spot because they don't know how to play. And that gets me to, I mean, you kind of led me right into it. The number one thing I wanted to talk to you about and kind of developing a theme here is, what skills are you looking for? You're going to be on the road for 15 days in July. What skills are you looking at specifically that translate to college basketball?
High motor.
Okay.
That's number 1, 2, and 3. Or just a willingness to compete, and that's kind of what's helped me from day one as a scout and evaluator, and kind of enabled me to kind of climb the ladder, is how hard does that kid play? Because it's a trickle down effect to me, because if he's a competitive kid, that means he wants to be better. And by being better, he's going to max out his skill set. And by maxing out his skill set, he's going to be as good as he can possibly be. And, one example is, I'm always looking for, like, July, Vegas comes, right? Like, in the industry, Vegas, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of Vegas is, like, fatigue. Like, everyone's fatigued, right? Like, you're tired, I'm tired, college coaches are tired, travel guys are tired, parents are tired, players are tired. And I'll never forget the kid, I think it was 3 years ago, last game in Vegas, a championship game. Last games had to be done by 5 o'clock on Sunday. It's like July 30th, July 29th. Championship game, 1600 ball, and this team loses. And, like, even in a loss, when it's Vegas, dudes are celebrating, right? Like, they're excited, man. Their summer's done. Like they hope they do their best. And this kid
they're about to chase these girls all August.
No doubt, right? And this kid is tearing his jersey off, running through the door. Now, I like guys that that are good losers, but I also want guys that they're not snickering after they lose, right? And this kid's tearing his jersey off, pissed off at the world, man. And I said from that day forward, that kid is going to be one bad dude. And he went from not even anyone's top 150 to we jumped on him early, stay on him, and he proved a lot of people wrong, proved us right. Noah Locke, top 55 kid going to Florida this year. And, ended up being one of the best shooters in the 2018 class. And I think he'll be even better at Florida. So that's just one example and one asset that it really does translate how hard.
But that's great that you, and then it just goes to what you do too, because I talked earlier about you being somebody who gets excited about who the best kids are, and in networking that kid to a school and whatnot. And if you're going to work for a kid and help that kid, if you're going to work for a school and help that school, you want the other parties to be as passionate about it as you are, and you can't be in the business of going to tell college coaches, you got to see this kid, you got to see this kid, and he's a lazy ass. You want to tell him, hey, go see this kid, and his motor is going to immediately kind of turn that college coach on. But some of the other stuff, the other kind of motifs you hear are rebounding translates to college, rebounding translates from college to pro, and so on and so on. But just talk about, I think, the thing that doesn't, and one of the biggest misconception probably from people who watch high school basketball to people who scout high school basketball for colleges, scoring doesn't always translate.
Not at all. Not at all. Like, first of all, who are you scoring against? Secondly, how are you scoring it? And third, how efficient is it? It's one thing to be a shooter, that's tangible. That translates. Like, you're 40% from three-point range off of 100 and some shot attempts. Now, granted, they might be uncontested, but if you're making shots from the three-point line, which it translates to the college level, there's some value in that. But if you're putting up 35 points per game and it's against Joe Schmo next door, or it's off of 35 shots per game, how much can I put into that?
Right, and then you go to a high school game and you see a kid, let's say they're a 6-foot guard and they're really, really good off the dribble and they can break a guy down and they get all their buckets are right around the basket, paint buckets, and they're not really shooting the ball well and they're getting 25 points, everyone's going to tell you, got to watch this kid. This kid's a big-time player. And you're sitting there going, well, all these shots that are drawn fouls are going in the basket. At the college level, they're going to get altered or blocked, go out of bounds, turnover. You're not getting that foul call. And, I mean, that's something people don't understand.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's the hard part. And during the high school season, when we can see some of these kids that go to these smaller schools in the middle of nowhere, and we're seeing, okay, so-and-so's averaging 38 points per game. Well, who's he doing it against? You know what I mean? And it's fun because we can all poo-poo the travel basketball scene, but Adidas and Under Armour and Nike, it's a phenomenal measuring stick to where, okay, you're a 35 point per game scorer. Let's see how good you are. You're going to play against 5 other guys on the other side of the floor that are being just as highly rated or highly valued as you. If you can do it here, or even just a little less here, okay, now we're going to start getting on board. But until then, we want to see it.
Right. No, absolutely, and that's one of the most difficult things. And then the last part of that is understanding, just like a high school coach or an AAU coach or a fourth grade girls coach, it's a parent. You're building your team. You're building a team of guys, and everybody's got a niche, and you're putting a lot of moving pieces together for whatever your system is. And you don't want 12 ball dominant guards, especially in today's game. You got to have 12, 13 scholarship players that are going to do different things. And sometimes I've had guys ask me, well, what do you think about this kid? Is he a Division I kid? And I'll tell them, yes, I do think he's a Division I kid. That being said, I don't think he's ever going to be a double-digit scorer. He's going to be a role player. He's going to be a defender, live body. But is he ever going to be a double-digit scorer? Probably not, unless he really, really, is getting 1,000 makes a day and over the summer for 3 years, and then maybe he gets there. So, that's part of it, and that's what you do, and that's why that's why you have the market that you have. That guys have to just sometimes shut up and listen to what your evaluation is, and that basketball is one of those. Or watching basketball, unofficially scouting basketball is one of those things in life where everybody thinks they're great at it and very few people are. And, you've certainly risen to it.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate it. And just one more thing, what I look for. And as you said, he might be D1 talent, but that's the thing right there, D1 talent. But also another thing is, man, is what kind of kid is he? What's the intangibles? What makes up his DNA off the floor? And that's the great part about seeing these kids in different settings, whether it's a college or a camp setting, whether it's travel basketball, whether it's high school basketball, is you might be able to hide it once or twice, but if you see him 4 or 5 times in 2 or 3 different settings, you're going to find out what the true character of the kid really is. And anymore, man, these college programs, they're willing to take the little less talented prospect with the bigger, the better character traits than the vice versa. And that goes a long way, I think.
That's a great point, because when you see the travel circuit ball or the big June camps, it's a pressure cooker situation. You're taking a lot of good kids, putting a lot of pressure on to compete against each other, and that pressure is going to show their true character, which is great, because if you're going to a Division I college on scholarship, especially if you're going to a high major, bigger fan bases, bigger arenas, more TV games, that pressure cooker situation is only going to amplify. And then you take to the fact that, well, you're a freshman, you're probably not going to play a whole lot on most teams. And again, true character really comes out. So, that's a great point. That just, speaks more to taking a lot of moving parts and putting into one evaluation. And that's really what the industry is, more so than looking at kids and saying, here's the rankings.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And that, I get the ranking side, I get a lot of people, they put so much focus on that stuff, but at the end of the day, man, it's about what you go out there and what you do and how much you want to improve, how much you can improve, and like we both said, what your makeup is. That's going to define the true outcome and just your final destination in college and beyond.
Perfect. Well, hopefully we had some younger scouting guys, some college coaches, or even some players or parents that are getting ready to hit the July period and understand a lot of what Corey was talking about what translates to college, just the passion that you have to have for it, and some of the intangibles that coaches are looking for, and can take from his story of getting into the scouting world, from being a graduate assistant all the way up to where he is now. So that was Corey Evans, national basketball analyst with Rivals.com. My name is Corey Albertson, Triple Double Prospects. Jason Morrow, 270 Hoops, on as a producer. And you guys listen to the Triple Double podcast. Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, Corey.